Aisyah Rafaee has lived the definition of resilience, but her story isn't just about rowing. Off the water, she's been very open about her personal journey with IVF and the challenges of balancing identity, ambition, and family.
And it was scary for me at that point in time because I hated asking for help. Yeah, so initially I didn't want to go public because it's scary talking about infertility, scary talking about your failure. But I decided to do it because I feel like I have a lot of questions. And if I have this question, I'm pretty sure someone else also has this question. And when I started putting those videos out there, people have been reaching out to me and answering my questions or sharing their journey. And every journey is different.
Welcome to Abnormal, the podcast for normal people who want to do abnormal things. Today's guest is a true trailblazer, Singapore's very first Olympic rower, an SEA Games gold medalist, and someone who has quite literally crowdfunded her way to the Olympics. From walking away from a stable job to chasing an impossible dream, to making a remarkable comeback 8 years later in Paris 2024. Aisyah Rafaee has lived the definition of resilience, but her story isn't just about rowing. Off the water, she's been very open about her personal journey with IVF and the challenges of balancing identity, ambition, and family. In this conversation, we dive into all of it, the sacrifices, the setbacks, and the strengths it takes to keep showing up when the odds are stacked against you. Aisyah, welcome to Abnormal. How are you getting on?
Hi, Pete. Wow. That intro.
Do you like that? Do you like that one?
It's been a while someone introduced me like that, so thank you.
When you hear it all like that, and again, I've tried my best to summarize, obviously, and do a good introduction for the listeners. When you hear it all like that, does it bring back any feelings or anything, like when you hear it all summarized?
100%. Like, I mean, the recent Olympics was very recent, and the first Olympics was 8 years ago. So when you talked about crowdfunding and all that, I'm like, oh my goodness, I did went through all that.
That was super interesting when I was doing my research. So talk us through about that. Like, what is the crowdfunding story? What did you actually do to get to the Olympics?
Yeah, so the first games in Rio, so I took like a few months off from work. So I was a teacher then at Nian Polytechnic, and then I was coaching as well. And then I took a few months from work, and then I went to Sydney to train. So it was all using this whatever savings that I had. And then when I was in Sydney, towards the end of my training stint, I ran out of money because Sydney is not a cheap city to live in. And I guess I was like panicking. I was like, what the hell should I do now that I have no money and have one more month to the qualifications? So I was living with a family, and the dad was saying you should start crowdfunding because you have a lot of supporters who want to see you push through this journey. And it was scary for me at that point in time because I hated asking for help. Especially when it comes to money. I've not even asked money from my mom since I was like 12 or something like that. So that was scary, but, put myself out there, created this crowdfunding page, and the response was overwhelming. I was so grateful to be able to reach that amount, which allowed me to continue to train in Sydney and travel to Korea where the qualification was. And yeah, I guess made history then.
That's crazy. What a great story, and so cool that so many people were happy to support you. And then you became the first ever Olympic rower for Singapore. So I guess you paid them all back. It was all worth it in the end.
I guess so. Yeah, it's nice to know, especially coming from a country where crowdfunding wasn't a thing, sports wasn't a thing, being a full-time athlete wasn't a thing. I was actually surprised people came forward and helped. But what was even more surprising was there were people who was not even from Singapore. So there was some donors from Australia, some from
Wow.
America who donated quite a bit of money, and I was like shocked at how open and generous people were in helping another person reach their dreams.
That's super cool. That's super cool, and probably one of the best use cases of crowdfunding that I've heard. So talk us through then. You've You've made it to Rio in the Olympics. What was it like actually qualifying and being on that start line in the Olympics as the first ever Singaporean rower?
It was nerve-wracking for sure. It was my first like Olympics. I wasn't young. I was 28, but I started pretty late, so I'm considered pretty young, and especially because I was the only rower from Singapore. So I had no teammates. It was just me and my coach. And I remember there was just a lot of pressure on me. It fell on like Singapore's birthday, Independence Day in August, and the Prime Minister was talking about me. I feel like
Wow.
everyone in Singapore was watching the race. So yeah, it was scary. And usually when I race, you don't think about anything that's outside of the race. You just think about what's happening in the boat. But because of all this pressure that I wasn't able to manage, it kind of like shattered me. I was so nervous. I don't even remember how the race went. It was just so bad. And I didn't perform really well in Rio. So there you go.
Did you think that was because of the pressure and all the external factors?
Definitely the pressure. I wasn't prepared for it for sure.
Interesting. So if you could go back then and sort of tell your younger self one thing and give yourself some advice on that start line or heading into the Rio Olympics, what would you say now as, you know, a mental health coach and very interested in that side of sports?
Yeah, you know what's funny? Like I had to tell myself that in the second Olympics, right? Like, don't mess this up. But more of like just enjoy the journey. I felt like that was my redemption going back for the second Olympics because when I was in Rio, I was just so stressed. Like, yes, I did enjoy being there, but I remembered all I was thinking about was the pressure, the race. I didn't really get to enjoy it as much as I enjoyed Paris.
Mm.
So if I had a chance to go back to tell my younger self, I would be like, relax, you're fine, just enjoy it.
It must have been quite tough in terms of, you mentioned there that you were the only rower and from Singapore. So, you know, when in my head, when I think of the Olympic Village and the Olympics, and I've spoken to, you know, other Olympians, it really feels like a family vibe. Like everyone gets around each other. There's lots of athletes around. You're never alone. It sounds like, you know, in your sport, in your experience, it could have been a bit lonely out there. Would that be accurate?
Definitely. The journey is always lonely for a single scholar. You're out there. I mean, there are single scholars from other countries, but they usually have a team, and I don't really have a team. I do get envious of other rowers with big teams. But I think I was used to it. So, like eating in the dining hall alone or just with my coach, I was just used to it. Yeah, but not having someone else to talk to other than my coach was definitely challenging.
I think, I mean, when you mention the pressure there and you put down your, you know, your lower than expected performance in your words, in those Olympics, I'd imagine that as an athlete, it would have helped so much to just have someone to bounce your ideas off that isn't your coach, that someone that you know is also going through it. You know, when you're like, in my example, if I'm like shitting myself about something, I want to tell someone who's also shitting themselves about something so that we can be scared and nervous together and go through the pressure together.
Definitely.
If you don't have that, you're only in your own thoughts. I imagine you go to bed at night, you're thinking about it. You wake up in the morning, you're thinking about it, and then before you know it, you're on the start line, and you still haven't been able to get these things off your chest. Must have been
Yeah.
hard.
Yes, definitely hard, but that's why I depended a lot on my journals. So everything
Ah,
that I had
awesome.
in my head, I was writing them down. So yeah, I have like novels now based on what's in my head.
Is that something you do every day?
I try to on normal days, but usually when I'm training, it's every single day. Yes.
Wow. And what sort of, you don't have to tell us exactly, but what sort of stuff do you put in your journal?
Mostly about training. So I was just reading it up recently because I had to do like a workout on something. So I wanted to talk about my Olympic journey, and I was reading through my journal, and it was just a lot of what I'm feeling at that point in time, like writing down my self doubt, my negative self talk, and challenging them. A lot of this is what I'm going to do tomorrow. So a lot of planning. I'm type A. I need to plan my days. So I'm writing down, I wake up at this time, I'm eating this. So like I know exactly what's going to happen the next day. So a lot of numbers, a lot of planning, a lot of reflecting on training, what I need to do, what I did well in. So yeah, but I was also working with a mental skills coach then. So I did had someone to bounce like my thoughts around with, except that you said it's better to have someone who's in the village with you, like a partner in a boat or something like that. So it was quite challenging having someone like separated, further away. But yeah, I guess I made it work.
If you didn't have your journal, and you lost the ability to journal for a week, a month, what would that look like for you? What would happen in terms of your mental
Oh,
state?
I think I'll go crazy. Yeah, whenever I feel down or low, especially, I will turn to my journal. Like I have my deepest, darkest secrets in there. Even my husband, he doesn't know what's in there. He's not allowed in there.
It's just secrets, just the darkest of dark. But I mean, it's something that I'm very interested in because I want to say I do it now. Truth be told, is I'm very irregular. I used to do it every day. And because I was also struggling to sleep and all that sort of stuff, I was at manic time at work, and it actually just helped putting the thoughts down on paper before I went to sleep and when I woke up, and that really helped me. And so when I talk to people now who are struggling with the same stuff, I recommend the same thing, to kind of write your thoughts down. And I think there's something about pen and paper which is different from talking, because you can go off by yourself, go grab a coffee somewhere, and just get lost for an hour or two and writing your thoughts down. And the stuff that comes out is, yeah, maybe stuff you didn't even know was in your head, but it's good that it's out and on paper somewhere.
Definitely. And you know what? Nowadays, like you have your notes app, so you don't really need physical pen and paper. Like the
You
athletes
don't
I
need
work
it,
with,
but I
you
think there's
don't
something about having pen and paper for me anyway, old school.
for
But yeah,
sure.
talk about, what about the athletes that you work with?
No, if they, because especially younger athletes now, they don't really write down stuff anymore. So whatever works for them, like putting it on the notes app in their phone, or like taking a video of them just talking about the training and just saving
Hmm.
it and not have anyone see it. It's just unloading your thoughts, right? That's the process that is the most important.
So Aisha, I'm really interested because I don't want to just like go through a monologue and a story of your Olympics and your journey, because I mean it's amazing and it's super interesting. But I'm really interested to get a bit deeper, because now you are a coach, right? You're a coach, and your studies. Are you still studying, or are the studies completed?
No, I completed my master's in 22
And what was your master's in?
in psychology, specializing in athletic counseling.
So off that, and with your experiences, then what sort of athletes do you work with now, and in what capacity do you work with them?
Yeah, so I work with a variety of athletes from high schoolers to college athletes to master athletes, and in a range of sports. So I've worked with marathoners, rowers, tennis players, basketballers, and basically I help them with their mental skills. Right. Basically, it's someone. I was inspired by my mental skills coach to start this business, or even to take up this whole sports psychology thing, because I felt like I needed to talk to someone during my whole journey, and him being there was so valuable in my athletic journey. Um, he was not only a sounding board, but he was also like sharing with me tools and resources that I used. I used as an athlete. It's funny because I used them as an athlete when he was coaching me, and then I became a mental skills coach, and then I was teaching my athletes how to use these resources. And then when I put myself back in that athlete position, I'm like, holy crap, it's harder than it looks like. Like mental skills is not just like, oh, you go do it. It's like you have to practice it. Um and I thought like, oh, since I've done it before 8 years ago, now that I'm training again, I could use it again. But no, it doesn't work that way. you need months to like train yourself to use it again.
So what sort of practices are you talking about?
So it could be something as simple as refocusing your thoughts or attention, right? So there's these tools called the 3 R's. So first is you recognize your thought. So you recognize it if it's, and then you ask yourself, is this helpful at this point in time or not? If it's helpful, good, use it. If it's not helpful, you go to the next R, which is you regroup. So regroup is an action or something simple, something that you can do in a split second that will stop you from going down that spiral of just thinking about that thought that's not going to help you. So for me, it's like thinking about this big red sign and then I'll stop thinking about it. And then the third R is refocusing. So refocusing on something that's actually helpful at the point in time. So let's say I'm racing and I feel pain in my legs. I'm like, damn, this is painful. So recognizing that I'm thinking that, and then I'm like, this is not helpful. Let's stop and let's focus on legs or like arms or like breathe or something like that.
And you're saying it's a lot easier in practice. It's a lot easier said than done.
It's easier for me as a coach to just tell my athlete to do it.
And
But
then
when
so
I'm
as talk us through then, because so you've worked with your mental coach, then they inspired you to become a mental coach and do your studies. But then
uh-huh.
also you then went back into training and you went prepared for Paris 2024. So what happened in between Rio and Paris? Like because Paris seemed to be it seemed to be a very different qualification journey to Rio.
Yeah, so what happened was I retired from competitive rowing after Rio. And then I went back to normal life, found a job, got married, moved countries. And then I thought like I'm done with being an elite athlete. But I was still competing. I went into marathon running. I was lifting a
Wow.
lot. And then a year before the qualification, I decided like, oh, I'm still fit. Let's give it a try. So I went back training and that was it. And then I started training again. Yeah, it's crazy how, to think about it, I only had 4 months to train before the Olympic qualification. But here's the but. The 8 years that I took time away from sport or from rowing, I think helped because I came in with a fresh mind, fresh body, and I had all these experiences from endurance sport like running that I brought into rowing. So I absolutely love that.
But 8 years is not a short amount of time to be out of rowing. What were your like physiological markers like when you got back into it? Were you hitting the same times? Were you the same sort of level of rower as you were before?
Surprisingly, yes. That was the one thing that I was afraid of going back into rowing because rowers usually peak in their early 30s, and I was 36 when I went to the second Olympics. So I was afraid that I wouldn't be able to hit all the same timings, but I hit a lot of PRs. So,
Wow.
and that really made me realize like age is just a freaking number.
And you put that down to a mental and physical refresh, whilst also maintaining a very good level of fitness by trying other sports and other endurance events.
Definitely. I think trying other sports help. Being out of the boat, I mean, I went back into the boat, but more of like for fun. And also my job requires me to be in the boat. I think that helped like create just like a separation between I can be in the boat not for racing. I can be in the boat for fun because that's the part that I like being out
Mm.
there in the water. Yeah, I think separating myself from that Rio identity was huge because that was really hard to get away from.
Which, I mean, you say you do it for fun. I mean, I saw your Instagram story this morning. It looked like you were out on the water for 2 hours by yourself. Was that fun?
Yes, I have a different idea of fun, so no
Wow.
judgments.
2 hours on the river by yourself in a boat. That's, I mean, it looked really peaceful. And I can imagine that having that time to yourself, however frequently you do it, I imagine you get lost in your thoughts quite a lot in your training blocks.
Definitely. I feel lucky to be in a sport where it brings me out to nature, especially in a sport that not a lot of people can just pick up easily, not like running. I mean, running is fun, you are out there in the nature, but being on the water is just a different story altogether.
I've got a lot of respect for rowers. I've got a lot of respect for rowers, for swimmers, for endurance athletes in general, I think, but particularly rowing and swimming because, again, I spoke to an Olympic rower a couple weeks ago, and I've spoken to a couple swimmers on the podcast as well. And for me, I don't. This is probably more of a me problem than a sport problem, but it just seems so monotonous and mentally fatiguing to the row you did this morning. It looked really beautiful. So when you're actually out on the water, it looks really nice. But when I see the training sessions of people just sat on a rowing machine for hours on end, and when I hear the life of a swimmer where they're just staring down at a black line on the pool, swimming and swimming and swimming, no one to talk to, I'm like, why did you do that? Like, why did you get into this sport? So tell me, Aisha, why do you do it?
A lot of reasons. Rowing is a beautiful sport. I mean, I'm lucky that I get to see, like, look around when I'm in the boat. I don't know how swimmers do it. But I love the fact that it's the same stroke over and over again. There's something addictive about that. Like you're chasing for a perfection that doesn't exist. Like everyone's talking about the perfect stroke, but that perfect stroke doesn't exist. You want to go as close as possible to it. And I love it that I'm always learning. I've been in the sport for 20 years and learn something new every day, whether it's about the sport, about where I row, or even about myself. I'm always discovering something new. And I think I just love, I mean, I'm saying this now because I love the sport, but when it comes to hating the sport, I also have a lot to say about that.
Love-hate relationship.
It's painful. Rowing hurts. Um, but I think I also like that because I feel like, I mean, I'm also a little bit of a masochist, but you have to love pain. You have to love your own thoughts to be in that position where you're out there on your own and just like holding on to that pain. And there's something just greedy and I don't know, amazing about that.
Yeah, when you're in the hurt locker, it can be an addictive feeling. I think the more addictive feeling is the post-session feeling when you know that you've done the work and you're like, wow, that was a tough session. I nearly gave up. I mentally nearly gave up in that session, and I pulled through. Aisha, you mentioned there that you've learned a lot about yourself since picking up rowing. What's one thing that you've learned about yourself that surprised you?
That I can do hard things in life. Yeah, rowing is a sport. I mean, currently, just today when I was out there rowing, I saw someone who just picked up rowing, and she's a friend. And it's a hard, it's a freaking hard sport, not only physically, but also you have to learn the technique and you have to, learn about, I mean, Charles River in Boston there's lots of like turns. You have to learn to navigate around the river, under the bridges. Um, I mean, yeah, sorry, what was your question? Sorry, I got lost in that loving the sport.
What have you learned? What have you learned about yourself? Which you said you can do hard things.
Yeah, definitely learning to do hard things. And I learn about how strong I can be. And if I put my mind to it, I can do it.
And how much has that helped you in your post rowing career so far?
I don't know if I'm in my post rowing career, but
You're
um,
you're you're transitioning, right? In terms of like you've got other things going on outside of just rowing.
definitely in the transition phase right now. It has helped me. And I know you talk a lot about this in your other episodes that transitioning, right? Like bringing the skills as an athlete to other parts of your life. I used to think like, oh, it's easy to transfer the skills. Like employees will want to hire you because you're an athlete. But I've learned that skill transference, you need skills to do that.
It's a good
It's
point.
hard. It's like you can wake up in the morning to train, but sometimes waking up to go to work is different motivation. It's
Completely
different things
agree.
that you need to tell yourself. So I do find myself sometimes, especially when starting a business, I do like find myself asking myself, if this was an issue that I face as a rower, what would I do? Would I just give up?
Mm.
And most of the time, like, no, I wouldn't give up. I'll just push through.
I think you make such a good point there. It's very different motivations, right? Like I always compare it to when I was a kid at Christmas. Like waking up is the easiest thing on Christmas Day when you're a child, right? You're so excited. You're up at like 2 a.m., 3 a.m. At least I was anyway. Or as an adult when you go on holiday, if you've got an early flight, it's so easy to wake up when you're going on holiday. But when you're waking up, if you're going to an office, for example, if that's not what you're passionate about or what you want to do in life, then it's really, really difficult. Likewise, I'd imagine you have some very early mornings out on the river. Sometimes you want to do it more than other times. At least for myself, anyway, I wake up relatively early to train. And I try and not rely on motivation, to be honest. And this is what one of my messages to a lot of people I speak to, because anyone can be motivated at certain periods of time. Motivation only gets you so far. But when you've got an objective, a target in mind, like making the Olympics, rowing the Olympics, again, that's not me, that's you. You've done way bigger things than I've done. But when you've got that in mind, that's what gets you up in the morning. Not, oh, I really want to row this morning. It's, oh no, I've got to pay the bank today. I've got to do the training. I've got to do the training. I've got to deposit this training session to have it in the bank and tick another box because I made a contract with myself to get to the Olympics and do that sort of stuff. So running your own business then, Aisyah, do you have moments like that where you aren't very motivated, but you've made a deal with yourself that you're going to make this work and that this is you now? Do you ever have moments like that?
All the time. Especially because I have a full-time job. So running my business is kind of like a side hustle, like a passion project. And if I don't put energy into it, there's not going to be any money out of it. So yes, definitely there are days when I'm like, you know what, I can just live without this business and I'll be fine because I have my job to fall back on. But I love helping others. So that's what keeps me going, that motivation, that core value that I have on like just spreading what I've learned to others. I think that's the thing that kind of like is my compass to life right now, just honing on that core values that I have always uphold my whole life.
What are your core values?
So number one is like giving back, right? Because I managed to reach this stage in life because people gave to me, especially with that crowdfunding. So giving back is big. Number two, it's about excellence. So my like life is always about, and this annoys my husband so much because he's like, you need to learn how to chill. But everything I do has to be like, doesn't have to be perfect, but have to be like work ethic has to be like excellent. And yeah, that's my second. Like everything I do, it has to be. I want to be proud of it. And I think the third one is no matter how high I climb the ladder, I have to be humble because I have to start somewhere someday, right? So that's why I don't get it why, like, sometimes when I meet Olympians or like, I mean, like, if you're a professional athlete who earns like millions of dollars, maybe that's a different story. But if you're an Olympian, I don't know why you have to be arrogant about beating others. For me, I can't stand that. Like, I feel like you have to be kind to others because you don't know where they're at. And yeah, like, I think that's my three core values in life.
Have you met a lot of those people that you referenced just then?
Oh, 100%. Yes.
And is that more common than not to be that way, do you think?
I think especially living in America. Yes. For some reason, there's an air about people like, oh, you're an Olympian, therefore you have to be a certain way. I don't think so. Like, you're still human. You still
Mm.
have flaws and you don't have to have the attitude.
How have
But
you
that's just me.
found I think it's a great point. And I think a lot of people could learn from it, not just Olympians. To be honest, I'm sure we've all got something inside of us. I'm sure some people have met me and think that they can't stand me and they think that I'm fucking annoying or whatever. But hey, um, you live in America now. What was the transition like moving there? Why did you move? And then you again. I'm sorry for my ignorance here. You do mention your full-time job. I just want to be clear that what's the separation in terms of your side business, your full-time job? Are they doing the same thing? Are you still working in coaching and mental stuff for your full-time job as well?
No, my full-time job is with Hydro. It's a rowing machine company. Um,
Okay,
yeah, and I'm the athlete on the screen coaching the members at home. So
cool.
that's my
Okay.
full-time job, which is a dream job because I get paid to row.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's amazing. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Now that I understand now. And then I really wanted to talk about your move to America. What was the motivation to move to the US, and how's that been? The change in culture.
Yeah, so I moved to the US because my husband's from here, and now I'm stuck. um, I mean, I'm lucky, I feel, to be living in Boston, in terms of just how active the city is. And of course, it's a rowing city. You have the Charles River. And that's how I ended up in US in the first place. I was in Boston for rowing. The transition has been very challenging because I left basically everything back in Singapore, my family, my friends, my work to come here. But again, very grateful to be in Boston because of just the community here. I remember I started off rowing at this boathouse just down the road where we used to live, Community Rowing Inc. And no one knew me then. And then now, I mean, not being arrogant or anything, but whenever I go to the boathouse now, like I wave to people, I say hi. Like it makes me feel good because I feel like I've started from scratch here. And I've built a community around me, and I'm grateful for that. So that's why now that my husband has picked up rowing,
Ah,
I told
cool.
him like, when you're on the water, you are just Ross and not Aisha's husband.
Also, you're in my domain now. This is where I'm queen.
Exactly.
You
I'm
listen to
glad you
every word I
understand.
say.
Thank you.
Um, so how's living in the US then? Is there any change? Is there any plans to move back, or is that you guys set for the future? Do you think?
I definitely want to move back. Even though my husband's a little bit hesitant because he cannot stand the humidity and heat in
Yeah, I
Singapore.
was I was going to ask. It's pretty intense all year round, right? I mean, I'm in Hong Kong, so we go
Yeah.
to Singapore quite frequently, but I'm grateful to have seasons. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. It gets really hot and humid in Singapore. But I definitely want to go back because again, that's like my core value guiding me, right? Because I want to contribute back to the sporting community in Singapore. And I feel like my time here, I want to maximize it as much as possible, learn as much as possible because sports is a big thing here, and bring back whatever I've learned back home to help the other athletes. That's my ultimate dream.
And is the husband on board with that?
He said if I can earn enough money, yes.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I mean, yeah, you need to be able to sustain that lifestyle. But hey, I'm with you, Asia. We can do this. Get you back to Asia. Get you back to Singapore. That's where we want you to be.
Hopefully one day.
Now, Aisha, I did really want to talk about something else outside of rowing today. And, I love understanding more about your career and your Olympic journey because it seems like it's asked so much of you, like mentally, physically, emotionally. I mean, just to be an Olympian, it does take a toll, and a toll that the majority of us would never understand what it takes to be an Olympian. Um, but you've also recently been very open about your journey with IVF, and you've decided to share that publicly, which I personally think is amazing. Um, so, how's that journey going for you? What type of resilience have you shown in that journey, and how is this compared to sort of your rowing journey so far? How's this a different challenge that you guys are working through together?
So we are a year in the IVF journey, but a year also because I took a break last year for the Olympics, right? So we started trying before the Olympics. So when I had this chance to qualify and compete, I was like, let's take a break. And it's so crazy to think like, oh, I'm grateful I didn't get pregnant. It's like I
So
shouldn't be saying that,
yeah, it's a tough
but
mindset, isn't it?
I am. So after the Olympics is over, we tried again, and then we got referred to the infertility department, which I hate that word. They should call it another thing. It's like you're already saying you're a failure, but it's you're not up, like you didn't do anything. You're just a failure.
Especially, I'd
Failure to
imagine as a
reproduce.
mental coach, you see stuff like that, right? You see stuff there and you think that could be a lot better. That could be a lot. They could change that to make everyone feel a
100%.
lot more positive coming in here.
Yeah, I feel like this whole journey, I have like almost zero control over it. And it feels very different from an athletic journey because at least you can put in effort in sports. But when it comes to reproduction, zero control. You cannot have control over whether the doctor is available, whether your period's going to come or not. So it's a lot of waiting, it's a lot of patience, it's a lot of when I went like with the needles and all that, and my hormones started to change. I kept on thinking like, oh, I'm an Olympian, like I can handle these needles. But when when I was like, of course, the hormones start to change your body, right? And you feel a certain way. I couldn't run. I felt weak and fatigued all the time. I was like, what is wrong with me? And I gained weight and I couldn't do anything about it. So it was pretty bad. And then went through the egg transfer and all that. And then I realized that eventually your body will always go back to normal. You just have to be patient. You just have to be I made sure that during the whole IVF cycle, I was doing something for 30 minutes each day, whether it's walking or rowing on the hydro because I cannot run, or just doing squats or something, that makes me move a little bit. And I'm grateful I did that because when I was able to run again, to row again, like my body like kicked in almost
Yeah.
immediately. So, yeah, I think that's where that athletic part came into the picture. Like, okay, I just have to keep on moving. But having no control was really hard.
I can only imagine, honestly, because you train your whole life to have as much in your control as possible, have as much percentage chances of winning or improving as possible. You train every morning, you train twice a day, three times a day to increase your percentage chances of getting the outcome that you want. And I suppose with IVF or IUI or whatever couples are going through, it's really just a matter of chance most of the time. Like you could be doing everything right. You're obviously fit and healthy, and you still have no control. It's mentally that must be a real challenge as someone who's studied mental coaching and the mental side of sports and now life. Um, is there anything that you wish someone told you before starting this journey that you didn't know?
I think more of the how your body will change when you are under, like with the needles and all that. I did not expect it to be that bad. Especially because I take pride in my body. Like, I
Mm.
like how I can run with it, I can lift weights with it. But when you have, like, what, 12 freaking ovaries or eggs in your ovaries, you're like, "Holy crap, I can't move." But it made me appreciate science, definitely. It's and of course, if, IVF is successful and all that, it's like almost a miracle, right? Because, yeah, like science is so valuable, and it's crazy how to thinking about like the nurse will tell you, okay, you have to inject like 30 milligrams of this, and me and my husband were looking at each other and we're like, oh my god, they're trusting us with this needle and how much that we're putting into my body. It's like it's so much trust involved. And yeah, it's just very different from being an athlete for sure.
Yeah, I guess when you're an athlete, a lot of people tell you exactly what you need to do every time your training schedule set, your diet set. And this is, I mean, it's kind of similar. Like the doctor's telling you exactly what you need to do, but you're the one entrusted to do it. Put the needles in and do all that stuff. And then there's still no guarantee, right? There's still no guarantee that you're going to get pregnant, or or anything that's going to happen. So it must be very difficult. And I say this because when I watch your content and see your content on Instagram, I think it's so great that you're being so public about it, because I can only imagine the number of women that are going through something like this and are silent, or have a lack of information, or don't know how their body's going to change, don't know the chances of things are going to happen. So what was it for you, Aisha? Why did you come to that decision to say with your husband that you're going to go and be public about this?
Yeah, so initially I didn't want to go public because it's scary talking about infertility, scary talking about your failure. um, but I decided to do it because I feel like I have a lot of questions, and if I have this question, I'm pretty sure someone else also has this question. And when I started putting those videos out there, people have been reaching out to me and answering my questions or sharing their journey. And every journey is different. And I also love that every journey is different. Um, and what I really learned from this whole sharing process is, I mean, it's normal for the women who follow me to reach out to me. Um, and share their own journey, or like give me support or love and hope and all that. But to have my male friends, my male colleagues to come up to me and ask me about IVF, I'm like, wow, this is amazing. I love it. I love it when they ask me, oh, how's the IVF going? It just makes it so normal, and it doesn't make me feel like a failure. That's
Do
the
you
important part.
you've said that word twice now, Aisha. Is that really how you feel? Do you feel like you're a
Oh,
failure?
I don't think so, but uh, I don't know. I don't know. Is this therapy right now? Because I can
No.
unpack a lot.
I just
I don't
think that
think
it's
so.
it's I mean, you're an athlete, right? You're an Olympian, so you might see things as success and failure. Um,
That is
but
true.
I would argue that millions of women and men go through stuff like this. Like there's a lot of that. Like men are infertile as well, um, and I would hate for people to genuinely feel like a failure if that was them, because I know I'm not a scientist, but I have an opinion, and my opinion is that these people are not failures. Um, and I would really, the fact that you're so public about it, I'd hate for you to be walking around thinking that you're a failure or you failed in something, because that's that also then means millions and millions of other people are probably feeling the same.
No, you're right. Yeah. I don't think I see it as a failure. I don't know why I keep saying that. I think it's just like that negative self-talk that goes inside my head, like, oh, you can go to the Olympics twice and you can't even have a kid. So I think it's just something that I need to work on.
And I think you're probably in a good position to do it, because you're a mental coach, and if you were talking to someone else, giving someone else advice going through a similar journey, how much of it would you say is mental, and what would you say to that person for the
Mm.
mental side of things?
Definitely 100% mental. Yeah. And that's a crazy thing, isn't it? Like the things you say to yourself is something you wouldn't ever say to others, but you say nasty things to yourself. And you know what? I love it that you brought this up, because I'm definitely a work in progress, especially in something that's new to me, this IVF thing. Like I have been invited to do a podcast on IVF, but I'm so afraid to talk about it because I I don't know if I have a lot to say about it, because I'm just going through the process, and I'm not saying like I'm having fun with it, because it's not fun, but I'm also lucky to be in that position where I have this mindset that if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it's okay. But I know that some couples they're like we need this, we want this, and that I can't do that. That's just gonna freak me out, stress me out, and therefore I've adopted this mindset to be like, you know what, let's just go with the flow and see where it is. But I appreciate you for bringing that up, because I feel like I've been telling myself that failure thing over and over again. That's why it came up twice.
Yeah, I mean, it was very interesting to. I mean, this is the first time we've ever spoken, right? So to hear
Yes,
you say it
yes,
to
exactly.
hear you say it twice so surely, and I'm speaking to someone super successful in every measure that you could ever have. Like, you're a two-time Olympian, you've got a successful coaching business, you've got a dream job working for a road company. Every measure that there is out there, you're successful, but yet you're telling yourself that you failed and you're a failure at something, which again says to me that um that there are going to be millions of other people who are saying the same things themselves, but aren't talking up about it. And that's why I'm so grateful that you've got a platform and that you've decided to use that platform for good again. Because, I'm married, I've got a wife, and we had an experience last year where we lost a baby. We were pregnant, 5 month pregnant, and we lost our baby, very sadly. It was a horrible, horrible moment. And I also decided, or we decided, that we were going to share our experience and be public about it. And the number of people that reached out to me who were in my close circle or relatively close circle that had had a similar experience or something that had happened, but they were silent and they didn't want to share it, and they just sort of said, I really appreciate what you've said, about being public about it and sharing your emotions, because yeah, that's exactly how we felt. And I'm not saying that everyone's got to talk about these things at all. If that's how you deal with it, that's how you deal with it. But I can guarantee, by what you're doing and sharing your journey, that you're going to be helping so many men and women, because it's important that we mention both. So I don't know what I'm rambling on about, but I would hate for you to think that you're a failure for doing this, because that's not how I wouldn't believe that's how the outside world sees you, at all. It's certainly not how I see you, and I've barely known you. I've just seen a lot of your content, and I'm really happy that you're doing it.
I'm sorry for your loss, and I appreciate that. Yes, I do try to share more about the journey, because I want people to talk about it, so I don't feel so alone in this. And I want others to know that, wherever they are in their journey, like, it's gonna be okay.
For
Yeah.
sure. And I think your situation is quite unique because, as we said, you're a two-time Olympian. You've had this crazy life already, which so many people dream of, and you've lived it out. I'm very interested to hear your take on, whilst you're going through that career, Aisha. Is it spoken about the sacrifices that you're making potentially later down the line, family wise? Like, you've had a long, successful career, and obviously, the really unfair thing about women compared to men is that there is a biological clock on, you're a lot more fertile when you're 20 years old versus when you're 40 years old. That's just, it's biology. So does that ever get spoken about whilst you're in it, or is that something that you're thinking about as an athlete going through it?
When I was younger, definitely not in my mind at all, because you're like young and you don't think of all these things. That was one of the reasons why I did not want to continue training for Paris, because I knew that the clock was ticking. We want to try. But I also know that, like, I'm lucky to be still in my 30s, right? And I still have like eggs, and I'm still healthy. Like, my menstrual cycle is very regular. I mean, we I initially, when we started this infertility journey, I thought it was me because I was an athlete, am an athlete, and there was a period of time when I was a lightweight rower. This was many, many years ago, and I I had red ass where I didn't get my period and all that. I had low bone density, so I thought that was the reason why I couldn't have kids. But we found out through genetic testing that it was my husband's chromosome that's inversed, and this is even crazier because that means that there's no way we can have a kid through the normal way. Like you
Wow.
have to go through IVF. Yeah. But like you said, like it could also be the male or the female. Like you wouldn't know. It's not a blaming game. It's going through this process together. Um, and he's very open about talking about his inverse chromosome, because at the end of the day, it's not his fault that he has an inverse
Yeah. What can
chromosome,
you do? What can you do?
right?
Yeah.
And even if you have experienced red S, or you've been through, like, you've missed period cycles and all that, it doesn't mean that, I mean, like, of course, you don't want that 100%. This is crazy, but I used to think that if I had my period, I'm not training well. That's mind blowing. But thankfully,
Wow.
I've gotten out of that. I've changed my mindset around that. And I'm like thankful that my period is regular. That does have an effect in the future. That's why you want to avoid having all that altogether. I mean, I'm just an athlete, not an exercise physiologist, not an expert in this. But I also have known people who went through red S and still have kids in the future. So, like, you're just rolling the dice. This is life. Like, you don't know where you're going to end up, what your condition is going to be like. You just have to adapt when it comes.
Sorry, Aisha, I'm going to be very ignorant here. Can you explain what red ass is?
I believe it stands for relative exercise deficiency in sport. I am
Okay.
impressed. I know that.
That's very impressive. I mean, if I had no idea. So it basically, what does it mean? What happens when you have that?
So, it usually happens to female athletes when they lack nutrition, the proper nutrition. Their iron levels are low, so the symptoms are missing a period, low bone density, lots of
Okay.
injuries, and all that. So, usually the first sign is that missing of period. But recently, there has been a lot of red S in male as well, and of course, not in terms of menstrual cycle, but low bone
Mm.
density and lots of injuries. So, when you're working with like any athletes, I guess, but more so the younger athletes, you want to be aware of the symptoms. Like if they have one of the symptoms, it's like a sign that something has to be done.
Right.
Yeah.
And is it fairly easy to test for? Could you just test the biological markers and things?
I'm not sure. I think it's more of like if you're injured, then they will test you
Okay.
for it.
Then they'll
Yeah.
test you for it. So
So
after the fact. If you were, do you feel like women in sport, do you feel like there's a pressure for them to choose between like these life milestones like family, career, and stability more than there is men?
I think that women do have to choose at some point. Um, Yeah, I know a lot of people who had to choose between sports and being a mom, because you are growing a human in your body. It is 100% going to impact your performance. Um, but it doesn't mean that your career has to end there, right? To lengthen that athletic career after giving birth, I feel like you got to have that support system. Um, but yeah, the choice definitely have to be, even now, like I'm going through this. I'm not even like pregnant yet. Um, but I'm thinking about like I want to race. I want to race in November. Actually, even crazier. Like I have a race in October. Is the head of the Charles, and I'm thinking maybe I should postpone my embryo transfer till October. I'm like, this is crazy to even say this out loud, because I'm like, it's insane. Like, why am I postponing something that is so important to me for something that is even less important? So I'm struggling with that at the moment, but that's a different story. But yes, women do have to make these choices, and I don't think that should be a bad thing. I just think that we need to talk more about it, and people should come together and support that, provide that space for women to talk about it. Because
It's
I have
crazy that
not
that's
heard of anyone
even.
talk about this.
Yeah, I mean, apart from yourself, which is great, it's crazy that that's even a decision. It's crazy that you've got these two big things going on: your rowing career and fertility and IVF, and somehow they are also the same. Like you do have to choose between one of them at some point. Like, yeah, it's crazy that they're even coming to the same conversation. Um, Aisha, so I mean, I'm sure there are going to be women going through the exact same thing as you're going through, not with the rowing, but with the IVF. Um, so if you were to speak directly to these women and or couples, let's say, what sort of advice would you give them before starting on this journey?
Oh, Pete, I don't know if I have any advice because I'll try my best. I guess what I am embracing right now is just trust the process. I mean, this is me. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Take it one step at a time, adapt to changes. Don't drive yourself crazy over all these things that are beyond your control. And I don't know if that's advice, but that is what I'm doing currently.
I love it, and I think it's spot on. I think probably again, I'm not going through it at the moment myself, but I'd imagine IVF is probably one of the most stressful things that could happen if you let it be stressful. And it's very, you know how much I fucking hate people that when you're stressed and they say, "Oh, just calm down, just calm down." You know, it's like, well, no shit, I'm trying, and it's like, what? I'd imagine that's the same, right? If you're going through and trying to get pregnant, and the doctors or people are saying, "Oh, the best thing to do is just remain calm, don't let stress come into your life." It's like, yeah, no shit, but it's way easier said than done. So I think you're and it goes to show how difficult it is, right? Because you're an Olympian and you're a mental coach, and it's still stressful for even for someone like you. And so it makes you human, and it means that it's going to be the same for other people as well, and just how difficult it is. So for you, Aisha, how important is it to have like a support network around you and have people around you so that you're not in this alone?
I think that's very important to have, to know that, yeah, you are loved whether you become a mom or not. You're gonna make me cry, but
It's very powerful, Aisha, and I'm glad that you have that support as well. Because yeah, fuck, it's probably one of the most emotional episodes I've ever done. But honestly, it's great that you're speaking out about it. I know I've said it 100 times, but it's you've achieved so much in your life, so much more than most of us will ever dream of doing. And just by being open and transparent about your journey, it's going to help so many women and couples that you probably don't even know about yet. I know you receive a lot of DMs and stuff, and but you never know how many people you're touching. So honestly, hats off to you. Hats off to you. So
oh,
thank
I
you.
hate you right now.
I'm
I
sorry, I
think
didn't
this
mean
is
for it to
why
go like this.
I think this is why I avoided going on a podcast with talking about IVF, like not with you, with the other person, because I don't know, I feel like still being in it, there's a lot of raw emotions, and I'm still learning from all this because it's very new to me. But yeah, this is part of life. This is the journey.
It is, and I mean, I know it's going to be so much tougher that you're going through it right now, and um, that's I don't want to say that's the stuff people want to see, because it's not about the content, it's not about all that sort of stuff. But yeah, it's just the fact that you've made that decision to go public with it. People are also going through this right now who are doing this, having this conversation, but in their own heads and doing it alone and probably crying at home on the sofa by themselves without having people to talk to or anything, and having the exact same emotions that you're feeling, even though every journey is different. It's so powerful that you're willing to share whilst you're going through the journey. So honestly, I can't thank you enough, and I'm sure that you're helping so many people. Um, so on that, Aisha, I mean, I'm from this conversation, I've got a very clear understanding of how I'm going to remember you as a person, as an athlete, as an advocate for all things mental health and especially honestly for the IVF stuff, I've got a very clear image, and it's nothing but positive how I'm going to remember you. How would you like to be remembered in your life?
Oh, not as a girl who cried in a podcast. I want to be remembered as someone who writes her own story. Everyone has different stories. I'm owning this chapter in my life. And I want to inspire others to be better. That's why I'm putting all these stories out there, right? So they're not alone, so that they can talk about it with other people. And I think going back to who I am as a person, as an athlete, I want people to, like, when they look at me, they're like, oh, I need to be braver to talk about something. I need to go work out and do something for myself. Just being a better person. So I want people to remember me as that.
Well, I don't think you're going to struggle to have that, Aisha. Everything that you're doing or have done in your life is inspiring others, and I'm sure that's not going to change anytime soon. And so, Aisha, I've got one question that I ask all my guests, and I'm really really excited to hear your response to this. As you know, the podcast is called Abnormal. It is for normal people that want to do abnormal things. And I think you can very much be defined as abnormal in all the best positive ways possible. So for anyone out there listening to the podcast that wants to do something abnormal in their lives, what would your one piece of advice be to them?
My number one compass in life, my core value is to hold excellence in everything that you do.
What does that mean?
Take pride in the work that you do. Be the best version of yourself. My husband hates it when I say this. Be the best version of yourself every day if you can. Even if you are tired and you need to go to training, show up in the best way that you can for your training, for work, for life, for the people around you, and most importantly, for yourself. Because if you're not going to show up for yourself, then who else will? So hold that excellence value, not in terms of like chasing perfection, but chasing growth, chasing being better always. And that I feel is what excellent means to me.
I love that. I think that's fantastic advice. Whatever you're doing, do it to the best of your ability, and that will show dividend in the end. Aisha, thank you so much for giving up the time, and again, thank you for allowing me to have this honest conversation with you and being so transparent and allowing yourself to be vulnerable and talk about things that are really difficult to talk about. Um, it's going to help so many people, whether they listen to this podcast or follow you on Instagram or watch your content. It's truly inspirational, and I can tell you now that this has been one of my favorite ever podcasts to record, just because of the realness of it. And we're not just talking about being out on the water, winging, going to the Olympics and the Olympic Village and all that sort of stuff, but we're talking about real life here. And yeah, I can only thank you for allowing us to have this conversation.
I appreciate you having me here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Aisha. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Abnormal. If you enjoyed, please consider subscribing to the channel and give us a 5-star review in whatever podcast platform you are listening or watching on right now, as it goes a long way to help growing the show. Thank you, and see you in the next one.